Iraqi authorities say 3 airstrikes have targeted an Iranian-aligned armed group in its stronghold south of Baghdad. The group is a former paramilitary coalition called Hashd al-Sha'bi, also known as the Popular Mobilization Forces. Iraqi officials say the strikes came after an attack targeted a U.S. diplomatic and logistics center at Baghdad International Airport. Well, let's cross now to Nicolas, who's live for us in the Iraqi capital, Baghdad. Nick, how are the Americans responding to these attacks?
Well, the Americans are responding by first launching their air defense system, CRAM, when these drones reached the Victoria base, which is this diplomatic center. It's much more than that. It is where NATO forces are normally based. Next to it is the Iraqi counter-terrorism force that's there. There's also 5,000 prisoners, former fighters from ISIL that are there. So it is quite an important location, perhaps the most secure location in this country. And yet these Iran-backed militias in Iraq are able to head it. So one of the things that the Americans are doing is using their air defense force, but they're also pounding airstrikes against these Iran-backed militias. One of them was hit just a few hours ago, just south of Baghdad in the northern region of Babylon. This is in the region of Jazeera. And also, they're evacuating American personnel, NATO personnel, to be more specific. Remember, a few days ago, NATO announced their temporary withdrawal from Iraq. And so some of them have left by road, escorted by these Iraqi counterterrorism force. In fact, yesterday, when there was a drone strike on Victoria base, several Iraqi counter-terrorism forces were injured. And so, make no mistake, Mohammed, this is another front line for the Americans, another battleground for the Americans against the Iranians through the Iranian-backed militias here in Iraq that are trying to show their power here in Iraq. Mohammed?
Yeah, Nick, I also want to ask you about public sentiment in Iraq when it comes to these attacks. I mean, how do ordinary Iraqis feel about all that's going on?
Well, they feel disgruntled to be dragged into a war that is not their own. And you have a clear sense that there's fatigue. Of course, this country has gone so much conflict. And in the last 5 years, they were able to rebuild bridges, recreate cohesion, and reboost their economy. Now, both that, their social cohesion and their economy, is being affected by this war. And make no mistake, Iraq shares the largest border with Iran. It is a neighbor that they're going to have to contend with, and so do they have to contend with the Americans. So they're caught in the middle of this war. And there is no shelter in place. There is no air defense system when it comes to attacks that are happening. And so there's a sense of fear, but also resilience from the Iraqi people when it comes to all of this. Now, in the last few days, the Iraqi oil minister announced or declared a force majeure, meaning that it is unable to meet its oil obligation to the oil companies. 90% of Iraq's revenue comes from these oil exports. So that's going to have an effect on people's pocket money, but also the economy as a whole. Then there's the issue of gas. There's quite frequent power cuts here in Iraq, and a lot of that that powers electricity comes from Iran. Now, if Trump follows through on his threat at trying to neutralize the power plants facilities in Iran, then that's going to have an effect on the Iraqi people. Mohammed?
Yeah, it certainly is a very complicated situation there, Nick. Thanks for bringing us up to speed. That's Al Jazeera's Nicolas live for us in Baghdad.